would subscribe to my channel, like the video if you enjoy it, and maybe leave a comment down below. These simple clicks would mean a lot to the future of this channel and really reward the effort that I put in every day. And now, without further ado, let's go. Here is my story. I have recently started to wonder if my wife might be cheating, but I'm not sure what to do from here. I have no concrete evidence, so I don't want to confront her or bring it up in case nothing is happening, or to avoid having her hide things better. It's just been small things and a gut feeling. About 4 months ago, she began working out more and became much more interested in her appearance. She is very attractive but never really wore much makeup or styled her hair elaborately. She has also started being protective with her phone, which I know is a concerning sign. Normally, we freely use each other's phones, but now it never leaves her side. If I ask to use it to take a picture, she tells me to use mine. She has also been staying late at work more often and has taken a few more out-of-town business trips in the past 4 months. She hasn't initiated any intimacy and only gives me brief kisses. I tried to initiate a few times, and she either rejected me or was unresponsive. I felt worse than an outright rejection during the act. I brought up the lack of intimacy a while back, and she attributed it to exhaustion from being a mom, work, and working out. She promised to try to do better and kissed me that night, but nothing has changed. I've wondered if it might be some kind of midlife crisis. There's a guy at her work I suspect could be an issue. My wife used to talk about him a lot but stopped mentioning him a few months ago, although I know they still work closely together. He is married with kids and has mentioned having marital problems. I met him briefly a few times, and he seemed to ignore me. He isn't as physically fit as me, but he dresses well, is outgoing, and likes to drink, which is something my wife occasionally wishes I would do. I graduated from high school, and he has a master's degree. He also earns significantly more than I do. I train fighters for a living, which I love, but it doesn't pay much. My wife believes I can earn more in a different field. She's not obsessed with money, but I understand her desire for financial security. Recently, my wife took a work trip to a tropical resort with just this colleague and the CEO. In my mind, I worry that she spent a lot of time with this colleague. I want to confirm my suspicions, but don't want to cause issues by accusing her without evidence. We've had a good overall marriage despite a few ups and downs. A friend suggested I start gathering evidence discreetly, but I'm uncomfortable invading her privacy. If she is cheating, I can't imagine staying with her. I'm deeply involved in my kids' lives, and the thought of seeing them only part-time is heartbreaking. Any advice on how to handle this situation would be appreciated. Update: I accessed our cell phone account and noticed many late-night texts to a specific number. I plan to find out who the number belongs to. After discovering this, I felt emotional and upset. Last night, I tried to initiate intimacy, but she declined, citing tiredness and a headache. We discussed our connection, and she promised to improve, as she did previously. This morning, she mentioned a potential girls' trip to Vegas with college friends I haven't met. I'm starting to see a pattern, but I'm still unsure. I finally did some snooping and looked at the detailed cell phone records online. I noticed that there were texts to one number made in the middle of the night, amounting to hundreds. I called the number from a paid phone, and it went to one of her co-workers, the one I suspected could be trouble. I managed to access her phone while she was in the shower and found that the text conversation with this number was the one thing deleted. Also, that guy's number was saved under a female's name in her phone. I am now very worried about the out-of-town trips she took where this guy was present. I had to leave the house to cool off. I managed to compose myself enough to come home, but I don't know what to do from here. If I confront her with what I have, she will probably explain it away. I am uncertain whether I should try to gather more evidence quietly or confront her sooner. I am really angry. I am furious at her but also feel a strong urge to confront the guy. It will take everything I have not to do that. I am worried that she might admit to inappropriate flirting, and I won't have enough evidence to get her to admit to everything. Any advice on when to confront her? I am planning to stay awake during the time she usually texts him, then interrupt her and ask who she is texting to see if she lies to me. Update: last night, after everyone went to bed, I pretended to be asleep and waited to see if she would get out of bed to use her phone. Sure enough, a little after midnight, she got up and went into another room, closing the door behind her. I waited a few minutes, then quickly opened the door and walked in, saying I couldn't sleep and asking what she was doing. I caught her mid-text and stood over her too quickly for her to delete anything. I saw her slowly try to hide her phone. She said she couldn't sleep either and was texting a friend. I had a plan and immediately put it into action. I moved closer to her, started kissing her, and asked if she wanted to be intimate. As expected, she declined. So, I began laughing and playfully tickling her, joking that she must be more interested in the friend she was texting than me. Then I playfully wrestled with her to get the phone. I could see the panic in her eyes. She tried to retrieve it, but I turned away. holding it out of reach, laughing, and pretending to have fun. I told her I was going to call this friend and ask if she was interested in my wife. My wife exclaimed, "Please don't call her." I started walking away, pulled up the text messages, and saw one that read, "Can't wait to see you tomorrow." I pressed the call button, and after what seemed like an eternity, the guy answered. Unprepared for what to say, I just hung up. I then began reading the texts aloud in front of my wife, asking her why she was sending these messages to a guy at night. She said she didn't know. I asked if she had anything to tell me. She remained silent. Then I told her that I had seen the cell phone records and knew everything about her late-night texts with this guy. She started crying and apologizing. I remained calm. I explained that the next few minutes were crucial, and that if she didn't tell me the complete truth, there would be severe repercussions. She admitted to flirting with her coworker, who was having marital problems, and said it escalated to flirting. She claimed nothing physical happened. My fear was that she would only admit to what I already knew. I told her that if she couldn't be completely honest, she needed to pack a bag and leave. She agreed, crying and apologizing. Before she left for her mother's house, she asked if I was going to leave her. I said we would discuss it later as it was late. She left, and I haven't seen her since, though she has been trying to contact me, leading me to turn off my phone. My plan is to find a marriage counselor and make an appointment, pretending to want to work things out until I can use the counseling to help navigate the process of separation. I recorded the entire incident last night as a precaution in case she tried to make false accusations. I checked with a friend, and he confirmed that recording in our state is legal. I don't believe she would make false accusations, but I want to be cautious, especially as an ex-fighter and trainer. Any accusation of abuse against me, given my size and background, could be devastating, particularly regarding custody of my children. Therefore, I plan to record all our interactions as a safeguard. I am completely heartbroken. My family is falling apart, and the thought of missing 50% of my children's lives is devastating. Although I suspected something, I am still in shock. The most challenging part is that this is just the beginning. I want to confront the other man but need to control myself. He referred to me as the animal in one of the texts, and I know he's intimidated by me despite not having a college degree or a high-paying job. I pride myself on being intellectually curious and well-read. I may not be the smartest person, but I am certainly not unintelligent. I will try to update as things progress. At this point, I'm not sure what advice would help. I am just devastated. Update: I appreciate all the support I have received through this ordeal. I'm going through a lot right now and wish I had the time to respond to the advice and words of encouragement sent my way. To update, my attorney friend recommended a lawyer specializing in family law. Not only that, but this lawyer was also cheated on, and these cases allow him to exact revenge, according to what my friend said when recommending this lawyer. He will be very flexible with his fees and genuinely wants to help. Maybe this is a positive aspect. Now, onto the other side. My wife admitted to the affair. She told me it started as flirting, then turned into an emotional affair, but claimed it never became physical. I saw right through that, and she finally admitted it did turn physical, coinciding with the time she ceased intimacy with me. I received more details than I thought I could handle. It was a very passionate affair. To say this has really affected me would be an understatement of the highest degree. I am wrestling with my emotions and struggling to keep a thought in my head. I told my wife it would be best for her to stay with her mom for the time being while I take care of the kids, ensuring they have stability at home. My attorney is working his magic. Being in the house is a big advantage, according to him. I have also not told her that our marriage is over. She will find that out when she is served with the papers, which will be soon. I can't stop the intrusive thoughts of my wife and this man. I coach Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for professional and semi-professional fighters, and I'm trying to give them as much attention as I can. The physicality of my job has been helpful. Obviously, I am also focusing a lot on my kids. Outside of BJJ, my passion is learning about new topics. I normally read for a few hours each night to unwind, but lately, I haven't been able to focus on even a paragraph after seeing that they refer to me as a stupid animal. I can only imagine the other things they may have said. This situation has really affected me. I have always been a happy person, but the joy is just gone. On another note, since the word has gotten out about what happened, many people have offered to assist in any way they can. It's definitely comforting to feel supported. Several of my friends' wives have taken initiative, saying they know beautiful women who are interested in my impending single status. I won't be dating until this is all over and probably not for a while after that, but knowing there are options out there is comforting. I think I will be okay. Right now, it's all about the kids. I will try to update soon. My wife is distraught and pushing to stay married. I know I can't get past what she did, so staying together would only delay the inevitable. Next update. Life has been chaotic, but I wanted to log back into this throwaway account and give an update on my situation. I had discovered my wife having an affair and also found out that she thought I was stupid and a loser for not earning a high salary. I filed for divorce, and it should be wrapped up next month. We will have 50/50 custody, and she will be paying spousal support since she out-earns me by a large margin. That's the current legal situation. Now on to the other fallout. I am heartbroken, as are my kids. I never thought I would be a single dad, but here I am. My wife seems to be spiraling into some kind of depression. The man she cheated with decided that she wasn't worth the trouble. From what I am told, she has started drinking and going out with a lot of random men that she meets online. There have been more than a handful of times where she called me and begged me to take her back so she can have her old life back. Part of me wanted that, but I have stayed strong. After she found out how much money she will have to pay me every month, that seems to have made her angry towards me. So, I don't have to worry about her calling. My kids don't understand. Every second they errand with me, I feel miserable. I am also lonely all the time. I haven't spent much time with friends and mostly just stay home. The girl that works at a coffee shop I frequent even asked me if everything was okay because I looked sad. I guess I'm not hiding it as well as I think. There are people I know who want to set me up with women they know, but I don't want to do it because I feel like I am branded as the guy whose wife cheated on him. It has been so long, I have no idea how to date. I had a few fighters do really well on a pretty public stage, and that has been the only spark I have felt in a long time. I really don't know what I will do next. At some point, I need to snap out of it and move on. I just haven't reached that level of motivation, though. I did have somebody I know get in contact with the other man's wife and show her the proof I had. I just couldn't live with nothing happening to him. I am not allowed to go after him, so this was the next best thing. She didn't believe it at first, but then I heard about there being major marriage issues for them. As far as I know, they are together but on the rocks. I have a lot of anger over everything. It is crazy to think how life can be fine one minute, then completely upside down the next. One positive thing that has happened is that I met a girl through some friends that I am interested in. I haven't asked her out or anything, though. She is stunningly beautiful but is about 14 years my junior. I don't know if that's a major issue, but it is a pretty big age gap. Given what I have been through, I think my confidence has really been dinged. I feel like she is too attractive for me. She might actually be, I suppose, but I have been thinking about her a lot. So, that's been the last half year of my life. I have to say it has been the worst I have ever felt. I have always been a very happy person but just feel dark and gloomy now. Final update. Long story short, I found out my wife was cheating on me with a coworker and then I divorced her. Having been with her for about 15 years, saying my new life has been an adjustment would be an understatement. I do have moments of sadness or loss, but those are fleeting. For the most part, I feel great. My kids are doing well and are with me a lot. After the divorce, my wife had to take on more accounts at work to pay for her new single living situation as well as spousal support to me. She earned a lot more than I did. When the pandemic hit, I had a flexible schedule, so I was able to keep the kids with me and do homeschooling. Since my job involves physical contact with others, the pandemic has slowed that down. There aren't many opportunities for my guys right now, so in a way, it's been like I'm a stay-at-home dad. I took some time to myself after the whole ordeal. The younger woman I was interested in took a long assignment with her company in Europe. We stayed in touch through technology. After her assignment ended, she came back, and we have been together ever since. She loves me and my kids. She is an extremely compassionate and considerate person. Before we were introduced, I was told that there was an amazing woman resembling Wonder Woman and that she was the nicest person you could ever meet. I thought it was too good to be true, but she is absolutely the real deal. I think there will probably be some next steps in our relationship soon. Things for my ex have not really worked out. She started drinking and hooking up with random guys she met online. Having to take more accounts has also taken a toll on her. Just in the last few years, she looks like she has aged 15 years. She was always pretty, but the last time I saw her, she looked ragged, as if her life force was depleted. A weird thing to say, but that's what it looked like. Her best friend told me that she is miserable and hard to be around. I don't think I will ever understand how a person seemingly happy and in control of their life can spiral into such a dark place. My ex's friend also told me that she never thought I would leave her after the affair. I think she felt a sense of control over me because of her high income, so the affair had consequences that she didn't anticipate. I do hope she finds peace for my kids' sake. Other than some challenges due to the pandemic, things are great. I'm so glad I immediately ended my first marriage rather than dragging it out. I knew I was making the difficult decision, but that it was the right thing to do. Then I just grinded along. I have no problem inching a little forward every day, knowing eventually I will get through. If you are in this situation, you need to think about things in the long term. You might feel devastated at first, then sad, then depressed, then hopeless. But no matter what, you push ahead. Work out hard every day too. The key is to try to do one thing every day that improves you or adds to your skill set. Not self-help stuff, but real skills. I got into making short films of the guys I train and learned about videography and editing, which has been a fun hobby. I read more books to learn about all sorts of things. I just try to do something every day. Small things add up over time. You just need to make sure you are putting in the work and let yourself be patient. A man with even a hint of self-respect would stay firm. And she is making it incredibly easy for you to make the choices you have made. I followed your story from the beginning, and I think she could have very realistically turned it around and convinced you to reconcile. The only reason she's not with him now is that he ended it, not her. She wants her old life back but seemingly didn't say anything about wanting you back. If she were serious, her actions would show it. She would have told the guy's wife. She would be working hard to find a new job or go to HR to arrange some sort of transfer. She would be in therapy. She would be investing in self-improvement instead of alcohol and random guys. She wouldn't even be acknowledging other men. She would gladly pay you alimony if it meant keeping the door open, allowing you to do what you love, be the best father you can be, and maintain the kids' standard of living when she doesn't have them. She would have cut the guy off completely the night you caught her texting in the other room. She would cut off any friend who knew about it and didn't inform you because they are not friends of the marriage. She would tell the kids it's her fault. She would inform friends and family and tell them you'll need their support. She would be doing so many things differently if she really wanted to earn her way back. That's the story. If you liked it, please support us with a like as well as subscribe to our channel. Write in the comments what you think about the story. Thank you for being here with us. Like the video if you enjoy it, and maybe leave a comment down below. These simple clicks would mean a lot to the future of this channel and really reward the effort that I put in every day. And now, without further ado, let's go. Here is my story. Hi, I'm Jim, and I want to share my story. Sometimes when you're content, you might overlook what's really happening around you, but then unexpectedly, you discover that your wife is having an affair and your world turns dark. JT and I are both members of a beer club in Atlanta. He recently revealed that his wife of 25 years had been cheating on him for over 24 years during one of our club meetings. One piece of advice he gave, which I ignored, was to take off your rose-colored glasses and examine your marriage. My wife Karen and I have been married for almost 28 years and have 3 children. Life was good. My wife Karen is the only child of Ben and Alice Thompson and comes from a wealthy and well-known family. Although she's 49, she could easily pass for 35. I'm not entirely sure if I'd describe my upbringing as middle class, but I was raised in a loving family in a small town near Atlanta. I'm the younger of 2 boys, and we grew up next door to my grandparents. My father worked at my grandfather's hardware store, and my brother Ken and I helped out after school and on weekends. Ken went on to attend Georgia Tech and is now an electrical engineer in South Carolina. Following in my brother's footsteps, I also attended Georgia Tech as a computer science major. Every small town has its wealthy kid, and in our case, that was Joey. Joey and I have been best friends since we were 3 years old. While I attended Georgia Tech, Joey went to Emory. We often set each other up on dates when we visited each other's colleges, and Karen happened to be one of the blind dates Joey arranged for me. She was the only one I called for a second date. As seniors, we spent as much time together as our schedules allowed. One thing I knew for sure was that I wanted to spend the rest of my life with Karen. However, there was one issue I needed to address before proposing. I was raised to work hard and provide for my family, but Karen came from a wealthy background and had never worked a day in her life. I couldn't bring myself to rely on her parents' assistance. Fortunately, she agreed to marry me, and we embarked on our journey as an independent couple. I had saved up part of my earnings to buy Karen an engagement ring. The day after I proposed to Karen, we shared the news with her parents. Karen and her mother were thrilled and immediately began planning the wedding. Karen's father and I had a conversation in his study about my career plans after graduation. I informed him that I had accepted a job with a large corporation in Atlanta, which seemed to please him since he was acquainted with the company's executives. After spending about 2 hours together, we said our goodbyes, leaving Karen and her mother to organize the wedding over the next 14 months while I focused on launching my career. 3 months after we shared our plans with Karen's parents, Ben, her father, invited me into his study. He expressed his fondness for me and acknowledged Karen's love for me. However, as a father, he felt the need to protect his daughter and family. I sat there puzzled about what he was getting at as he handed me a document explaining that it was a prenuptial agreement he wanted me to sign. I could hear my father's voice echoing in my head, advising me never to sign anything without reading it thoroughly. asking questions, seeking advice, and giving it careful thought. I took my time reading through the agreement while Ben patiently waited. The document stipulated that if our marriage ended within the first 5 years, I would receive $100,000 but wouldn't be entitled to any other assets from Karen or her family. Every 10 years, the monetary limits would increase, with the maximum reaching $5 million on our 25th wedding anniversary. I sat there dumbfounded, trying to figure out how to respond. After a few minutes, I addressed him saying, "Sir, I love your daughter and plan to spend the rest of my life loving her. However, the practical side of me understands your perspective. I'll take this with me and think it over." He nodded and replied, "Good. I'll await your response." My father has always been my go-to person for advice, so I visited him next. Dad meticulously read through the document twice before offering his thoughts. He said, "Jim, we both understand why Ben wants this agreement, and the way it's written, it primarily protects his family's interests. The real question is, what do you want out of this marriage, and what do you want to safeguard for yourself?" We delved into my aspirations, emotions, dreams, and long-term vision with Karen. Dad continued, "I've always believed, Dee, that if someone asked you to make sacrifices, they should be willing to make some as well. Ben's attorney is representing the Thompsons' interests, as he's paid to do. They might see you as a country boy with less to lose and more to gain. Both you and I can understand the reasoning behind this agreement. Ben may believe you love Karen now, but he's concerned about unforeseen developments down the road. If we were in his shoes, we might do the same." He paused, then added, "Jim, marriages can falter for various reasons. This prenuptial covers any possible reason. Being together in college is one thing, but being a married working couple is another. Can you and Karen overcome challenges that may arise, such as differences in jobs, friends, finances, or family dynamics? Would you ever want Ben's money because your marriage didn't work out? What circumstances could lead to that decision?" I'm grateful I discussed this with Dad. I also consulted my brother Ken, who provided similar advice to our father. After talking with several other trusted individuals, I knew the changes I needed to make to the prenuptial agreement and how to discuss them with Ben. Update 1. During a later visit to Karen's family home, I approached Ben for a private conversation. We moved to his study away from the wedding preparations happening elsewhere. It was there that I brought up the prenuptial agreement he had given me some time ago. I explained to Ben that after careful consideration, I had some proposed changes to the agreement. He listened attentively and encouraged me to go on. Here's what I suggested. In the first 10 years of our marriage, he would contribute $100,000 annually to an investment account. We would jointly make investment decisions and review them quarterly. I believed this would strengthen our bond. If our marriage ever ended in divorce, he would retain the money. Any assets acquired by Karen and me during our marriage would be split evenly, except for gifts or inheritances from our parents. In the event that our marriage ended due to my betrayal, Ben would keep the funds while Karen would inherit all marital assets, excluding gifts from our families. Conversely, if Karen were to be unfaithful, the funds would belong to me, and I would claim all marital assets again, excluding any family gifts. When we reached our 43rd wedding anniversary, control of the investment account would transition to both Karen and me. I gave Ben some time to think over these terms. He seemed relaxed and expressed his gratitude for the sentiment behind my proposals. He particularly liked the idea of the joint investment, but had questions about the significance of the 43-year mark and the inclusion of infidelity clauses. I explained that at 43 years, Karen and I would both be 65, an age often associated with retirement. Regarding the infidelity clauses, I clarified that while irreconcilable differences could lead to a divorce without blame, adultery represented a deep breach of trust, something I believed a marriage could rarely recover from. Ben understood my perspective and promised to draft a revised version of the agreement. A couple of weeks later, Karen was informed about the updated prenuptial terms. While initially surprised, she came to appreciate the thoughtfulness behind the clauses. After a thorough review, she asked for my thoughts on it. I confirmed my comfort with these stipulations and reiterated my reasons for them, especially emphasizing the emotional weight of adultery. Following this, Karen and I celebrated our love with a magnificent wedding followed by an unforgettable honeymoon. Update 2. We've been married for nearly 28 years and have 3 children. Our oldest, Dan, is 26 and named after my father. He's working for one of Ben's companies, where Ben is grooming him to take over the family businesses. He's also been accepted into an MBA program starting this fall. Benny, 25, has a passion for the outdoors and joined my dad after graduating from college. As you can see, Benny is named after Karen's father. My dad is delighted to have a family member taking over the farm and hardware store. My brother and I left the farm as soon as we could. Amy, our youngest, turned 18 3 months ago and has me wrapped around her little finger. She's our most talented athlete and has received a full scholarship to play soccer at UNCC next year. After our boys left for college, I converted the basement game room into a brewpub. Karen and I enjoy hosting gatherings, and the pub has become a hit with our family and friends. For the past few months, I had felt that someone might be pilfering my beer. I never maintained a strict record, but there was an uneasy feeling in my gut. As I was organizing beers for a beer club gathering, I found myself short of IPA bottles. During the meeting, I confided in Fred Jones about my growing suspicion regarding my 18-year-old daughter possibly taking my beer from the pub. Fred inquired if I allowed my daughter to consume beer. I explained that while I did allow her a sip if she was interested, I couldn't imagine her taking whole bottles. I further expressed my observations that the beer tended to vanish whenever I was away on trips. I was sure it wasn't Karen since I had never seen her completely drink a beer, given her preference for wine, and while my sons enjoyed my brew, they always left with a case of their own, leading me to believe Amy and her friends were the culprits. To this, Fred suggested installing a motion-activated camera in the pub to potentially catch her red-handed. Impressed by the idea, I inquired if he could set it up the following morning when Amy would be at school. He proposed 11 a.m. as a suitable time, to which I agreed. True to his word, Frank was there on time the next day, getting the system up and running within 15 minutes. He also took some extra time to guide me on its operation. He wondered if I intended to inform Karen about the surveillance setup. I voiced my concerns about her possibly letting it slip to Amy, so I had decided against it. He was curious about my travel plans, and I shared that I was scheduled to visit Cleveland the next week. Before parting, he wished me well and hoped the system would provide the evidence I sought. With everything in place, we left the pub and decided to grab some lunch. Update 3. Over the next 2 weeks, I made it a routine to enjoy a beer in my pub while checking the surveillance tape. However, all I ever saw were the cleaning crew who came in on Tuesdays and Fridays, along with myself returning from my Cleveland trip late on a Friday night. I had to spend the day at the office. In the evening, Karen and I had dinner with her parents and attended a play. On Saturday, we hosted a barbecue at our house. Sunday, after attending church, we visited my parents. When we returned home, I decided to take a nap in my easy chair. On Monday night, while Karen was at a meeting and Amy was at soccer practice, I finally mustered the courage to review the tape. 5 minutes into watching the footage, my world shattered. I had expected to see Amy and her friends, but instead, I witnessed Karen entering my pub, hand in hand with Jerome. Jerome, along with his wife Diana and daughter, had moved into our neighborhood about 8 months ago. His daughter Nicole had quickly become friends with Amy. As I watched, I saw my wife bent over the arm of my favorite chair, intimately involved with Jerome. I sat there numb for who knows how long. It wasn't until I realized I was watching footage from the Saturday barbecue that I snapped out of my daze. I deeply regretted not installing audio recording along with the camera. The initial shock I felt soon gave way to anger, which then escalated to pure rage. I remembered my father's consistent advice about tackling problems with a level head, cautioning against making decisions in the heat of anger. He had often emphasized doing thorough research, understanding the crux of the issue, and then deciding on a course of action. He believed that decisions made in anger were often regrettable. Knowing this, I was determined to gather irrefutable evidence. As I waited for the tape to rewind, I tried to control my emotions by taking deep breaths, bracing myself for another viewing of the distressing footage. It was clear from their interactions that this wasn't a one-time occurrence. The sequence showed them sharing a beer and engaging in a casual conversation. As events unfolded, Jerome dressed up. Karen got him another beer, and she, too, dressed, all the while the man leisurely sipped on my beer. Not only had he deceived me by getting involved with my wife, but he also had the audacity to drink my beer and even take some bottles with him. I decided to consult Frank and gave him a call. After introducing myself, I asked if he had a moment to speak. When Frank wondered if I had caught my daughter stealing my beer, I corrected him, informing that the tape had revealed my wife with our neighbor and expressed my need for his expert advice. Recognizing the gravity of the situation, Frank conveyed his sympathies and inquired about what I specifically needed. I told him I needed comprehensive assistance, and we settled on meeting the next day at 4 p.m. To my relief, Karen hadn't returned home yet, giving me some time to compose myself. About an hour into my reflection, Amy approached me, and I took a moment to reassure her that I would be there for her soccer match. I don't typically avoid problems, so I chose to stay awake and wait for my unfaithful wife to return home. I can't help but wonder if she was actually at a meeting that night or if she was involved with someone else. Regardless, I figured Frank would uncover the truth. Update 4. I entered Frank's office at 3:55, mentally prepared for what was about to happen. Frank expressed his sympathy regarding Karen's betrayal. I mentioned that I had spoken with JT, and he had informed me about Frank's expertise in handling such cases. I asked Frank for his professional advice, making it clear that I was aware of the prenuptial agreement and stressing that we had all the necessary evidence to prove adultery. I was eager to know his strategy. I was determined to gather comprehensive information about Jerome, his background, connections, and family. I wanted him to be closely monitored in every aspect of his life, as I was determined to make him face the consequences for disrupting my life. My intentions extended to Karen, and I wanted her to be under continuous surveillance as well. Frank acknowledged the extensive nature of this task and explained that it would require a significant amount of time and manpower. He assured me that the process would begin the very next day and suggested installing surveillance equipment in my home and Karen's vehicle, which I thought was a good idea. I expressed regret for not having audio recordings from the previous week and asked about my upcoming trip. Frank reminded me of my upcoming trip, scheduled for 3 weeks from then and lasting for 4 days. He was confident that by the time I returned, a substantial amount of information would have been collected. When he inquired about the tape, I confirmed that I had brought everything he had specified. When we discussed the logistics of installing the surveillance system, I mentioned that Karen had her regular bridge game on Thursdays, which could be a possible opportunity for the installation. When he asked about the time required, I was informed that it would take about 2 hours. We agreed to meet at my house the following Thursday at 9:30. As I left Frank's office, I felt a slight sense of relief, knowing that proactive measures were being put in place. However, the 3-week wait that followed seemed endless. When it finally came to an end and I set off, supposedly for Austin, I had a feeling that it was my final goodbye to Karen. Mike Ford had meticulously prepared all the necessary legal documents, which were securely stored in my briefcase, ready for the upcoming confrontation. I changed my destination from Austin to JT's place, fully aware that the following day would mark the end of my marriage. As expected, Frank later gave me the troubling news I had mentally prepared for. He told me that shortly after I left, that man had come to my house, and they had engaged in their secret affair right in our bed. To make matters worse, Frank mentioned that Karen had even invited him for the next night, as Amy would be away at a friend's house. After a lot of thinking, I decided how to handle Karen's infidelity. Although a part of me wanted to confront them in a dramatic fashion, I chose a more measured approach. The next day, I reached out to Karen's father, asking for a private meeting at his office to discuss an important matter. Recognizing the seriousness of my request, he agreed to see me that evening at 6:30. When I arrived, Ben looked puzzled. My unusual request to meet in that setting had clearly piqued his curiosity. I began by expressing my deep respect for him, likening it to the respect one has for a father. I then explained my situation, revealing my intention to serve Karen with divorce papers due to her adultery. Shocked, he asked for more details, so I told him the painful truth. I had obtained video evidence of Karen's affair with her lover right in our marital bed. To emphasize the seriousness of the situation, I added that even at that moment, they were repeating their actions. He was visibly shaken and wanted to know my next steps. I shared my initial desire to confront them dramatically at our home, but then suggested a more restrained approach, mainly out of respect for him. Over the next 45 minutes, we discussed my proposed plan, and we eventually agreed that it was the most sensible way to proceed. Final update. At 9:15, Ben and I convened at my residence, joined by Frank Jones, Brad Williams, Mike Ford, and Steve Collins, an Atlanta police detective. Following the introductions, Frank updated us on the situation unfolding in the master bedroom. Karen and her lover were indiscreetly involved. As we exchanged words on the porch, Frank was alerted via his earpiece about the ongoing intimacy within. Upon gaining entry into the living room, I turned my attention to Ben, suggesting he might prefer to stay downstairs given the circumstances. It was a delicate situation considering his relationship to Karen. I reiterated that I harbored no ill will towards Karen that could lead to physical harm. As our group proceeded upstairs, Brad, equipped with a video camera, led the way. The intention was to capture undeniable evidence before confronting them. We aligned outside the bedroom, the muffled sounds of intimacy emanating from within giving us pause. It was clear they were sharing more than just a physical connection. Preparing ourselves, we made our entrance. The sight that greeted us was Karen attempting modesty with a sheet and Jerome rather ineffectively using a pillow as a shield. Without wasting any time, I began the introductions. Frank the investigator, Mike my attorney and the impending divorce, Steve the detective, and Brad behind the camera. The atmosphere was heavy as I explained my restraint from reacting violently. I made it abundantly clear that our home had been under surveillance, capturing every deceitful act for the past weeks. Addressing Karen, I laid bare my knowledge of her past with Jerome and her motives for marrying me. The room's tension intensified as I recounted how she had chosen me over Jerome primarily to appease her parents and ensure the continuity of the family line. a purpose now fulfilled with 3 heirs. As Karen attempted to interject, I silenced her, emphasizing the pointlessness of any explanations. The evidence against her was overwhelming. Especially damning was her invitation to Jerome, recorded not long after my departure. Turning my focus to Jerome, I noted his impressive skill at deceit. I relayed how he had been closely watched for the last few weeks, alluding to a comprehensive report about his background and activities. To further the humiliation, I instructed Frank to display the findings on a DVD for the pair, especially wanting Karen to see Jerome's true colors. The video revealed Jerome's blatant betrayal of Karen, showing him intimately involved with 2 other women. The climax of the video was a recent dining scene where Jerome openly discussed his affairs with his friends. In the video, he boasted about continuing his affairs with married women, specifically mentioning Karen. He reminisced about Karen visiting him on her wedding day and her promise to remain faithful to her husband. After one final encounter, he scornfully remembered how she had recently confessed a desire to marry him, expressing doubts about ever considering marrying her. The impact of these revelations was immediate. Jerome became furious, accusing me, while Karen, overwhelmed with emotion, curled into herself, tears streaming down her face. Sensing the tension, Frank and Steve positioned themselves closer to Jerome, trying to calm the situation. They assured him they meant no harm unless provoked and hinted at Jerome's wife and her brothers being displeased upon discovering his infidelity. They suggested he get dressed quickly. I then informed Jerome that his past actions were now known to everyone, as the evidence had been given to his wife and the husbands of the other 2 women. Furious, Jerome threatened me, unaware that he had just incriminated himself in front of a lawyer and a police officer. Mike promptly handed Jerome a set of documents, divorce papers from his wife. I conveyed his wife's strong desire for Jerome to never enter their home again. In a surprising twist, I told Jerome about his brothers-in-law who were already waiting downstairs to escort him out, clearly not in a pleasant mood. To make matters worse, I revealed that they had played a significant role in gathering evidence of his numerous affairs. As Steve led Jerome away, I turned my attention to Karen. I challenged her to consider the magnitude of her betrayal. How would it feel knowing she was just another conquest for Jerome? What was it like to come to terms with the fact that she had destroyed our family for someone like Jerome? Drawing from our history, I reminded her of a pact we had made 3 decades ago. Infidelity would be the ultimate breach of our bond. She hadn't just ended our marriage, she had cast a dark shadow over every cherished memory and future family event in the eyes of our children, our parents, and our friends. Her actions made her a deceiver. Seeing her now filled me with visceral disgust, and it pained me to think that I had devoted 30 years to someone so undeserving. She appeared pitiful, lying on the bed with tears streaming down her face, hiding beneath the covers. I informed her that I no longer considered her worth my time and urged her to get dressed quickly. Her father was waiting downstairs, and he wasn't thrilled about discussing her actions with Alice. I emphasized that I had nothing more to say to her and urged her to hurry. When she expressed reluctance to let her father see her in her current revealing outfit, I reminded her that she had the choice to change quickly or be taken downstairs as she was. She asked for a different outfit, but I stood firm. Her complaints about privacy were met with a reminder that those present had already seen much more compromising footage of her. The urgency was clear. The outfit she had previously worn was, to put it mildly, provocative. A sheer blouse, an extremely short leather skirt, and high heels. When I escorted her downstairs in that attire, the shock on Ben's face was evident. He couldn't believe his eyes and expressed concerns about taking her home looking like that. Worried about both Alice's and his own reactions, I was torn. I wanted her to feel the embarrassment of her clothing choice, but I also respected Ben and Alice. As the weight of the decision hung in the air, only the steady ticking of the grandfather clock broke the silence. Understanding Ben's discomfort, I offered a compromise. Steve could drive them home in Ben's vehicle, and I would follow behind. Then, as a final sign of respect for Karen's parents, I allowed her a brief opportunity to change her clothes. She wasted no time going upstairs and returned shortly after wearing an outfit that was far more modest, resembling that of a typical mother. Before she departed, I approached her and removed her engagement and wedding rings, stating that she didn't deserve them. When she tried to take her purse, I stopped her, insisting she would leave with only the clothes she was wearing. Ben, appreciating my earlier gesture, extended his hand in gratitude, assuring me he would take it from here. Telling the children about their mother's affair was the hardest thing I've ever had to do. Seeing the pain in their eyes, answering their questions, and witnessing them cope with their mother's infidelity was heartbreaking. When Karen cheated on me, she also cheated our children out of a family. My parents' reaction mirrored that of my children. In the final update, Amy turned down her soccer scholarship from North Carolina to join the Emory soccer team so she could be closer to her daddy. Our compromise was that she could attend Emory, but she had to live on campus with her teammates. She helped me remodel the master bedroom and purchase new furniture for my pub. When she's not home, I sleep in the guest room. Dan and Benny visit and check on me more frequently than before. One of the things I enjoy the most is that they take turns accompanying me to my beer club meetings. Benny has taken on the challenge of growing some hops for the beer club. We're organizing a competition to determine who can brew the best beer using Benny's hops. I'm aware that Amy keeps an eye on me and ensures her brothers stay in touch with me. Following advice from our attorneys, Karen and I opted for a no-fault divorce. Ben agreed that I had sufficient evidence of Karen's adultery and didn't need to file for divorce on grounds of adultery to gain control of the investment fund per the prenuptial agreement. This way, Ben, Alice, and Karen avoided the embarrassment of a public trial. I did permit Ben and Alice to go through Karen's belongings and take her personal belongings. A couple of months after the incident, Karen's father, Ben, got in touch with me, wanting to have a face-to-face conversation at his office. This was a bit surprising, since Ben and I usually just had phone chats. For nearly 25 years, he had been trying to get me involved in their family business. I had consistently declined his offers, always emphasizing my desire to make my own way rather than relying on his success. However, during this meeting, Ben brought up the idea of me joining the family business again. I quickly let him know I wasn't interested, reminding him of my long-standing stance on the matter. Ben understood my previous refusals, but stressed that the current situation was different. He mentioned his age, the fact that his son, Dan, wasn't ready to take over for at least another 10 years, and his belief that I would naturally step in if he couldn't. He also talked about how Karen's actions had deeply affected his wife, Alice, who felt humiliated and had withdrawn from her social circle. Her therapist recommended a change of environment for her well-being. Given all this, Ben expressed his wish for me to temporarily take over his role and mentor Dan for the future. I expressed my sympathy for Alice's situation and asked him to pass on my feelings to her. I also told him that I couldn't give him a definite answer right away and needed some time to think it over. Ben understood but was eager to speed up the decision-making process for Alice and Karen's sake. He asked for a time frame for my decision, and I agreed to meet again in 3 days. Before we wrapped up the conversation, he playfully mentioned my habit of consulting with my father for major decisions, emphasizing our meeting in 3 days. 3 days later, I let Ben know that I'd be accepting his offer. Dan is excited about his role in overseeing the family business. But as Ben rightly pointed out, he's still a few years away from being ready to take over. Ben and I meet with Dan, Benny, and Amy once a month to discuss family business matters. This arrangement allows Ben to stay updated on what's happening, and it provides Dan with a support system he can turn to for advice, similar to how I consult with my dad and brother. Karen moved to Florida with her parents and stays in touch with the children. Dan and Benny make several trips to Florida each year to visit Karen, and Amy spends a couple of weeks with her during the summer. Karen also attends several of Amy's soccer games but keeps her distance from me. Alice is making progress but won't be returning to Atlanta. I'm not sure what happened to Jerome. His wife divorced him, and to the best of my knowledge, he relocated out west. He was involved in at least 8 divorce cases and is financially ruined. Jerome not only ruined his own life but also destroyed many marriages. I suppose I shouldn't place all the blame on him. Those women made the choice to cheat on their husbands. They were not coerced. They planned their affairs in advance and share responsibility with Jerome. I hope to find someone to love in the future. I miss being married and having someone to hold, talk to, and share my love with. Until that happens, I'll wake up each morning, express gratitude for my children, and approach life with a forward-looking perspective rather than dwelling on the past. That's the story. If you liked it, please support us with a like as well as subscribe to our channel. Write in the comments what you think about the story. Thank you for being here with us. Let's go. Here is my story. Literally happened this morning. I'm posting it here, hoping to vent and maybe get some perspective because I've been extremely upset all day and can't process this productively. My wife is 8 months pregnant with our child. We live next to another married couple who are in their late 30s. I don't like the guy. I found him to be invasive and the weird type of friendly that almost seems to be prying and clingy. I'm not sure if that's clouding my judgment here or if this validated my beliefs about him. I left for work, decided on the way there I just wasn't feeling it and called off. I stopped for breakfast before heading home to surprise my wife, 40 minutes tops. I get home, enter from the back door, and here's my wife and my neighbor sitting in our living room on the couch. She's turned toward him, fully clothed but with her shirt pulled up over her very pregnant stomach, while he, facing her, is rubbing lotion on her stomach with both hands. They both froze before my wife asked how come I was back and then said his name stopped by to borrow the toolbox while I was moisturizing and wanted to know if he could feel the baby, so I said okay. I told him to get out before I put him out, and he left immediately. I tried to stay calm and talk to her and get the whole story. Neighbor's wife is apparently infertile. First I heard of it, which is amazing considering the guy never shuts up about his personal woe and he wanted to feel the baby. That's her story and she's sticking to it. That's not good enough for me. My thought process is, there's a big effing difference between feeling a baby for 10 seconds and coming into our home and rubbing lotion on my wife's stomach. If it was some close friend of ours, I might understand, but I dislike the guy, and my wife has never expressed any sort of closeness to him aside from passing pleasantries. And she's not the type to let anyone she isn't close to put their hands on her. So, in the span of a day, the guy goes from being a distant acquaintance of hers at best to her deciding to invite him in and let him rub her. I also find it convenient that he showed up that early right after I went to work, very shortly after his own wife also left for work, and he's never come over asking to borrow anything of mine before. Yet, 9:30ish in the morning and he urgently needs a toolbox. I don't believe my wife. This is the first time my trust in her hasn't been strong enough. I don't believe her story because it makes no sense. When I told her I'd be mentioning this to his wife, she was adamant I don't, as not to make more of it than it is. If it was innocent, what more is there to make? And even if nothing more is going on, I'm not okay with what I've seen. I'm not okay with him rubbing my unborn child in my home without me there. I know it's her body and her choice, but I'm not okay with this. It would be one thing to feel the baby kick, but he was sitting reclined comfortably on our sofa, rubbing lotion on her with both leaned into their private conversation. I'm trying really hard to figure out how to express the fact I don't believe her story without causing stress that could be dangerous for her or our baby. I don't want to pick a fight with her at this stage of her pregnancy, but at the same time, my mind is spinning, and I'm not cool with what happened. Any advice would be appreciated. Update appreciated. This will be my only update. And I'm only posting it due to the amount of support I've gotten, as well as the numerous requests to do so. I didn't expect the response I got and I've unfortunately seen it referenced on other subreddits. So I'm choosing to confront it. Most of you are right. Congratulations. I read through all of your replies and spoke to friends and stewed for a day. My wife stuck to her story, apologized for making me uncomfortable, and assured me it wouldn't happen again. Crapser decided to leave a handwritten note in the mailbox specifically apologizing as well. I still didn't feel better. And the consensus was that I should speak to my neighbor's wife, who we're going to call Sally. So, that's what I did. Watched my neighbor leave for work. Then called my mother-in-law to come take my wife for lunch and a girls' date so she could get out of the house. I left as usual for work, called off again, and went to stay with a friend. Got a text from my wife around noon telling me she was with mother-in-law and would be back by dinner. Went home and knocked on Sally's door. Crapser decided to tell Sally I kicked him out and caused the scene about not wanting either of them speaking to us anymore because I was pissed about him helping my wife. Come to find out, both Sally and Crapser have been going over to my house while I was away, busy for the past few weeks, as my wife had approached her and asked if they would be willing to lend a hand with chores she could no longer do alone. Sometimes Sally went over and did small tasks, or just hung out, sometimes both, sometimes just Crapser. Wife told her I knew and was fine with it, and that's why she was confused when her husband told her his crap about me being mad. She showed me where she texted my wife, has her number, not mine, to clarify, and asked if she was welcome over, and my wife hasn't replied. And since I don't often see Sally or socialize with them, she just assumed her husband was telling the truth. She also admitted that she noticed Crapser and my wife becoming fast friends and figured it was due to the pregnancy but thought it was his way of dealing with their inability to have kids, so she wrote it off. I told her what I walked in on. I told her about the tools which ended up being crap, too. Came to the same conclusions. Both cried, both hugged for the first time, both took turns denying and accepting and talking each other down. Took a walk around the block together and conspired. She planned to call Crapser at work and say that my wife messaged her confessing to the two of them having an affair and seeing what happened. Went back to my friends, started having major panic attacks. Thinking I effed up. I was about to ruin my marriage, worrying I might be wrong. A bit later, and I get a call from my wife, screaming at me to find a way to leave work and come home. So, I go home. Crapsicker called her telling her what Sally told him. She told me I was crazy, I was a piece of crap, that she was considering leaving me, everything. Having a panic attack, thinking I just ruined my entire life over nothing. While also trying to calm her down for the baby's sake. Impulsively told her that if she was leaving, I'd still be requesting testing, a DNA test, and that's when it all came down. Entire tone changed, pleading, begging, apologizing, hyperventilating, holding me, asking me how I found out while denying anything happened. I told her it'd be okay and asked if she'd talk to me if we went for a drive. She agreed, took us to a parking lot, and we talked. Told her if there was any chance of anything happening, she needed to tell me. what was happening because I already knew a lot. She'd decrap sicker a handful of times before she was pregnant. Our baby might not be ours. Crapser had been coming by and doing daddy duties once in a blue moon in case it's his. They haven't slept together in months. She said we could move away, that it's ours no matter what, that he had manipulated her, admitted she lied to Sally to justify Crapser going over for daddy duties. I asked her if she'd stay with mother-in-law for a few days while I calmed down. She agreed, took her home, packed up some stuff, and dropped her off. I've cleaned out my essentials, and I'm in a friend's basement. Friend called her on my behalf and told her that if the baby is mine, I'll be dealing with it. If it isn't, it's on her, but either way, I'll be filing for divorce. My friends took my phone from me and deleted my social media. She's been calling my friends. Friends told her to F off. I spoke to my boss, and he's been very understanding. Last I heard from Sally, Crapser hadn't been home and stopped responding to her calls and texts. I have nothing left. In less than a week, my life has fallen apart. The only thing keeping me here is the small chance that the baby is mine. I have nothing else. I woke up today disappointed I woke up at all. I've never felt this alone, and I haven't accepted any of it yet. I'm praying for the first time in my life that I can stop feeling this way and find strength. Edit. Thank you all for the incredibly kind words. Even those of you who are doubting me took the time to weigh in. I'm not sure what else I can do to verify my story without revealing any more personal info than I have. So, while I'm aware nothing ever happens on the internet, you'll have to take my word for it or don't. I'm honestly not sure where to go from here. I feel sick. I feel jittery. I want to confront them both and scream, but I don't want to leave the couch. I know that time plays a big role, but I'm worried about my ability to deal with how I'm feeling right now for too much longer. I'm worried about how this is going to affect me mentally long term. I'm trying not to drink. She was the person I used to go to when I was at my lowest, and I'll never have that support again, and terrified I won't have the child I've already come to love. This feels more like a death than the end of a marriage. It feels incredibly hopeless right now, like a part of me is missing. I appreciate everyone who has offered to let me vent and checked up on me. I'm going to take a break from the internet for my own sanity, but the well wishes have been a help. If there's reason to celebrate in the future, I'll share it with you. Update 2. I'm still getting messages on a regular basis for an update, so this is the final one. Extremely long story made slightly less long. A week after my last update, my soon-to-be ex-wife had our child, which I was at the hospital for. I'm the father. The first few weeks after my last update were extremely difficult, with family friends on both sides adding to the drama. Thankfully, I've had an overwhelming amount of support from not only from the vast majority of people I know in my personal life, but from all of you as well. My wife and I agreed to sit down and discuss things after she was discharged in my friend's basement with my friend upstairs in case I needed the support. She came over, and we basically said everything we needed to say. I exploded and said a lot of mean crap, most of which I regret, some don't. She spent the whole time apologizing and begging me to take her back and give our family a chance to survive. Everything that happened went on for about an hour like this until I accepted that there was nothing left to say, and I have zero romantic love for her anymore. And she accepted that we need to focus on our daughter above all else. We're agreeing to figure out a custody split amicably and to eventually co-parent more actively together when wounds heal, but our marriage is over. She has the potential to be a wonderful mother, but she failed me as a wife, and my sole focus right now is how to get myself mentally to where I need to be the best father possible. We plan to eventually sell the home, but right now, I'm staying in an apartment. Sally is leaving Crapser. He's apparently staying with his mother and still refused to speak to Sally directly. According to her, the last thing that was passed along to her is that he understands what he did. He's sorry he hurt her, he loves her, and won't contest a divorce. She's struggling to handle everything and lacks a support system, so we're developing a friendship, mostly two wounded people leaning on each other, and I'm doing my best. She plans to start therapy too. And no, I don't plan to be anything more than platonic friends with Sally, lovely woman, but no, I still haven't fully processed my new role as a parent. I think mentally I already convinced myself my child wouldn't be mine in case it ended up that way. I plan to take classes and spend more time with my daughter, doing early bonding. I'm terrified but very happy. I know there's a lot left to do and a lot of hurting left to go through, but I'm stable and a dad, that's what matters most. Certainly, here is the punctuated script. Opus, my opinion, these kinds of situations are challenging for everyone involved, especially for a child. The journey ahead is bound to be arduous regarding custody arrangements. Avoid consenting to anything that may give her an upper hand. Advocate for an equal split, a 50-50 arrangement. This will enable you to move forward in your life. Your ex is likely to fiercely oppose any attempts to move on. She will consistently strive to maintain a primary role in your life, using your child as justification. She made her choices, and now she must face the consequences. The challenges ahead will be tough for her, and she may attempt to rely on you for emotional, mental, and physical support. Refuse to be a backup plan. Don't settle for being a second choice. You deserve much more. If and when you find someone better, ensure she doesn't disrupt your life again. Good luck and stay strong. Story 2. My first post might be long because I need to vent it out. I and my GF met in a professional program and connected instantly. We chatted and connected, and within 3 months, got into a relationship. We both were very happy and involved in it. We were enjoying all of this. It was 2016. Then in 2019, she kissed twice to a guy from her building and her childhood friend on 2 different days. This guy, her sister, and my GF were all friends and had a group. After this, on another day, she got into a heated argument with her mom and ran from home to that guy and girl's place. There she kissed him again with more passion because it was home, not in front of his sister. I cannot know all this because I live in a different part of the same city. She accepted all this to me and apologized to me. I got angry and was very sad at this behavior. I did take some time to think, but I forgave her. We decided on some restrictions and precautions to be taken from now on. She agreed to all and promised to be more cautious. In 2020, during lockdown, it was impossible for us to meet, and then she told me that during her kiss at that friend's house, they had proceeded further and that she had shown chest to him. Where we come from is a conservative place compared to the West. We do not have sex until we are married, and showing chest and getting oral is a big deal. Since it was lockdown, I took my time, thought about it, and since I had already forgiven, I forgave her. Then we lived happily again. We started going to each other's place, met each other's parents also. Since due to the above incident, I had become a bit restrictive, like drinking only with me, etc. In 2021 to 2022, she started going trekking every weekend, and due to my exams, I wouldn't go. I asked her to meet me on at least alternate weekends and not go on a trek. In the first week of Feb 2022, she asked me for a break, giving a reason that she wants a bit of freedom, that there were too many restrictions, and she couldn't live with it. I felt very sad and spoke to her about it, but she was adamant and assured me that it is just a break. But she did meet me on the 14th of February, where I saw a guy's name on her phone whom she met on a trek. I was sure that this break thing was about him. Even though it was a break, we used to talk on call but seldomly. I warned her on call that if this is about a guy, then please drop it because once you get involved, life will be tough. She then asked me to come for one trek and that it will be fun. I agreed and I went for that trek. In the bus, when she was sleeping, while going, I checked her phone and read chats with him, which were very shocking and saddening for me. They were meeting at his place. The guy lives alone. I didn't confront her immediately because it will ruin the entire trek for us and the group. After we returned, I told her about it, and she was very apologetic. She accepted that she had feelings for him and me too and that she is very confused. I asked her to choose right now, and that still it was not late. She agreed and blocked him. I had exams which required rigorous studies, and so I couldn't meet her very frequently, but we used to meet and were enjoying. Obviously, there was a little void but thought it could be overcome. I completed my exams. We started meeting regularly. I asked her if she has any contact with him, and she denied. So, I thought all was okay. She came to my place to chill in June, and she was a bit sad and sounded guilty. I cheered her up and told her to forget everything and decide what we wanted to be in the future. After 2 to 3 days, she was crying over the call and told me that she was still in touch with that guy and that she had still visited his place. She had gone for a 5-day trek in March, which she told was going solo. She accepted that they had gone together and that she met him last in June itself. I asked her why, to which she said that he was crying continuously and that he wanted to meet one last time, and then one last time became one more time. I was so angry and unhappy that I told her that I needed time, but it was mostly over. She was crying so much and was always apologizing to me, but it's too tough for me to forget everything. I cut the contact with her but couldn't block her. I cannot block because I'm not that person. She was crying continuously since days and also said that it's better to end life. Whenever she threatened to end her life, I used to get scared and change my stand. She was crying continuously, and her parents realized that something was wrong in the relation and that it must be her fault. Her mom had called me secretly, and I did tell her that it's very tough and that something wrong has happened from her side, but I won't tell the entire truth because it's personal. She had told me that they had only kissed, and that is why I gave her a chance. After her confession in June, she told me that they have been physical to the level of a hand job, and it blows my mind away. She is still very apologetic in messages and calls me every 4 to 5 days. Recently, I came to know from her that her father is in financial trouble, and that it is taking a toll on his health. Both her parents are aging and have health issues. From where we belong, we get attached to families too, so this affects me. Her parents are supportive but also motorments, so when they are in pressure, they speak anything and swear to GF. She has had a rough childhood due to this, and deep down, I know she is a very good human being. She is also smart and very good at her work. Apart from this affair and all the lies spoken, she has been very supportive financially, morally, socially, etc. What should I do? I don't contact her from my side but haven't blocked her. Also, 70% of me says breakup is final, but 30% also says to forgive her, take her back, and bring her to the right track. I failed in that exam because of all this, and again, I have the same exams in November. It takes 3 months preparation to clear the exam. Is this karma? Can she be forgiven? What should I do? It's taking a bad toll on both our mental health. Update. I'm writing this in the context of my previous post made more than a year ago. After posting on Reddit, I gathered great courage and understood that I was right, so I didn't have to blame myself. Also, understood that it's not my responsibility to help her out, especially after what I had to go through. After all these, I blocked her from all the connects possible, but she has always tried to communicate through some or the other medium. In November 2023, she had messaged my friend to ask about me, whether I was doing fine or not. Today, since it's my birthday, I received an email from her at 5 in the morning. I didn't read the email, blocked her email ID, and archived it. I have made up my mind to progress in life and to get married in 2024, the place where I belong. I will have to go for arranged marriage. I have 2 questions at this point. 1, how to get out of the memories completely. I have made great progress here too. There are very few instances when I remember her or the memories strike. But is there any way to get out of it completely? 2, should I bother her messages? I feel like it hinders my healing process. Is there any need to read those? Honestly, I don't want to read it because I suffer emotionally. I know it's not in my control to stop someone from communicating, but when will this stop? When will she stop messaging me? Because when I get married, it would not be nice to receive messages from an ex. My opinion, avoid reading her messages. Implement a no-contact approach. Concentrate on yourself and prioritize self-care. Invest time with those who care about you and bring joy into your life. Incorporate regular gym sessions into your routine. Consider moving out with friends. Choose activities that contribute to your happiness and well-being. The initial phase may present challenges, but it will gradually become more manageable over time. Good luck and stay strong. Thank you. That's the story. If you liked it, please support us with a like as well as subscribe to our channel. Write in the comments what you think about the story. Thank you for being here with us.